The Monkey Mind Podcast, your number one platform for athletes and mental health. Hosted by Danny Perez and Anthony Florentino.
This is episode 62 featuring Sean Edwards. Sean is a former hockey player, now turned hockey coach and physical education teacher / movement specialist for children with disabilities. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Daily Dose CBD Inc. Daily Dose CBD Inc. creates full-spectrum CBD products ranging from tinctures, bombs, and dog treats. Research has shown that CBD has successful results in aiding in the following areas: anti-inflammation, anxiety, PTSD, help with breaking addiction, neuroprotection, epilepsy, arthritis, chronic pain, and sleeping disorders. Daily Dose makes an extremely safe and effective product that we know you will love, enjoy, and benefit from. Daily Dose has given Monkey Mind listeners 15% off all their orders. Head over to dailydosecbdinc.com and use promo code MonkeyMind15 for 15% off your purchases. That's promo code MonkeyMind15 for 15% off all your orders at dailydosecbdinc.com. Yeah, all right, we're going to get into it. We got a very special guest on today, Sean Edwards. I wanted him to introduce himself, and I told him off the air too. I'm going to tell him again on the air. I don't want him to be humble. I'm going to call him out. But yeah, so to give context about me and Sean's relationship, Sean, I played spring hockey for the New Rock Patriots with him, and he started a summer program and a spring program out in New Rochelle, New York. And he invited me to come play, and I would do lessons with him. And essentially what flourished from there was, someone who is extremely important in my life, and a mentor, and someone that, I've opened up a lot to in regards to my mental health and in regards to hockey in general. And I'm wholeheartedly confident in saying that I would not be where I am today from a mental perspective, and from, less importantly, a hockey perspective, but still important to me at the time. But I would not have been where I was at playing collegiately and professionally if it wasn't for Sean Edwards. And he's helped me get out some pretty dark spots that I was in. And he's someone that I've known pretty much my whole life, my whole hockey career. So he's watched me grow, and he's been instrumental in my growth. So, I'm just super excited to have him on and, kind of talk about a bunch of different topics, whether it be mental health or, hockey and mental health. So I'm excited for him to give his perspective on it and his experience and all that as a hockey coach and a teacher as well, and a very intelligent man and someone who's important in my life. So without, taking up all the airtime here, Sean, if you could please introduce yourself for everybody out there listening.
Wow, sure. Yeah. Geez, Dan, thanks for the intro.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So, listen, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to come on the show. What are you, like 61, 62 some odd guests in to this this big thing that was an experiment back in the day, and it turned into something that's a legitimate platform for discussing mental health issues and supporting players, and I guess just being a voice and letting people know that they're not alone out there. I mean, so listen, hats off to you for creating something out of nothing, and bringing so many people on and letting them talk and tell their story, so that so many more people can kind of hear that. And that's incredible. So what you've been doing, I mean, I'm really proud of your effort. And hey, listen, hats off to you for setting that up. About me, my hockey background is it's pretty all over the place and pretty eclectic. Obviously I'm Black American, Afro-American, and I grew up in the South Bronx in a single parent household. My mom, brought me up. I never met my dad. At the time, my mom, when she had me, I have 4 other siblings that are half brothers and sisters, 2 brothers, 2 sisters. 1 brother passed a long time ago. I am the youngest of the 5 in total. And I have nieces and nephews. I always joke with Danny, I've told you before, I have nieces and nephews that are much older than I am. And it's just the pecking order of things. And, at the time, my mother made the decision to really focus on raising me, a young man that, by herself, in the middle of the South Bronx. She came from Warrenton, North Carolina. She left an abusive household, had a stepfather that wasn't the best, and a mom that, really, back then, the female wanted to have a male counterpart that took care of her and made sure that the household, things were different. And that sense of independence wasn't as strong in certain areas. And, my grandmother, wouldn't separate herself from that toxic environment, talk about mental health issues and being environments that aren't healthy for us. My mom, however, wanted to get herself and her young kids out of that. And so she came to New York, and she raised those 4 kids on her own. She worked as a beautician in the city. She eventually, took equity in her own shop. And then she kind of retired from the business and gave that up when she later had me at a later age. And she went on to public assistance because she needed the financial help in order to raise me in the city by herself. And lo and behold, her son picks the most expensive sport there is to get involved in. So at the time, my older sister, she would come by, and the way I got involved in hockey is this: she came by one weekend, and she would take me to different places, parks, this, that, the other thing, just to be active. When I was much younger, probably around 8 or so, this took place. And one of the times we went on an excursion to an ice rink, and it was Flushing Meadows War Memorial Rink, and she would take me there on a regular. On Fridays, we'd skate. It was a lot of fun. I took to it really, really quickly. I hesitate to say that I was extremely athletic. I don't think that was but I did pick up things pretty quickly, and skating was one of them because I had a strong interest in it. It was a lot of fun. And one time she came to pick me up, and we went to Flushing Meadow and Flushing Memorial Rink, and it was closed. And we were kind of like, well, what's going on? The Zamboni had broken down. Typical story for an ice rink. So I was really upset. She wanted to try to appease me. So we found another rink in the city, 450 West 33rd Street, the 16th floor of an office building. And for those OGs out there, you'll know that was Skyrink, which is now Skyrink at Chelsea Piers. And when we came in that Friday afternoon, there was a hockey clinic going on. And right before what was going to be a public session, and my face immediately got glued to the glass. The guys were doing suicides. The sound of it, there was a whole bunch of kids on the ice, young teenagers, whatever, and just back and forth, I was glued to it. And from that moment, about 8 years old or so, I just knew that I wanted to be part of that. So I became a rink rat, hung out in the rinks, all the time. The manager of that facility, Skyrink at Chelsea Piers at the time, was a guy by the name of Guy Robinson. And Guy Robinson was an old Yale alum. And, he had gotten down on his luck a little bit here or there. He managed the rink because a gentleman by the name of Dave Tewksbury had thrown him a bone, given him an opportunity to kind of manage the rink. Guy was an amazing skater, older gentleman. He would run the clinics. And he saw I was there all the time. He eventually started piecemealing equipment together for me, and I went from being on the public sessions after the clinic to sneaking out during the clinics when I wasn't supposed to, and he kind of turned his eye the other way. And I skated there. I got involved in clinics, developed my skills over time, developed pretty quickly because I loved it, and I was enjoying it, and I couldn't get enough ice time. And, I skated in the house league teams there that would have me. I would, be a ringer, sneak on if someone needed an extra player. I would sneak on and jump in the back of someone's car if they were going off to a tournament and jump on the bench and play. I eventually was at Abe Stark Arena in Brooklyn, and they had the Greater New York Stars, which was a program that I kind of haphazardly was a part of, and I couldn't afford any of this. So it was all, not handouts, but a lot of supportive people that allowed me to just kind of slide on the rosters. Things weren't as official as they are now. You could get away with all that. And, I played for those organizations. I played out at Abe Stark for a while. I played at Skyrink for a while and got as much ice time at those two facilities. Eventually, Skyrink hired a director of hockey named Jimmy Burns, and we're kind of jumping ahead a little bit. But Jimmy Burns was played for the Nordiques at one point in the old the Devils, New Jersey Devils, and kind of had a drinking problem back in that time and found himself, doing all sorts of things. He became an actor. He actually was a soap opera actor, oddly enough. And then he found his way to managing, being a director of hockey at the old Skyrink at 450 West 33rd Street. And he kind of became a mentor. He was my first official coach, and he helped me out through a couple of things. I found myself connecting with a gentleman by the name of Bill Hall. People in the hockey community will know who that is. And, he worked with the Selects program and the national program a bit. Jimmy sent me up to the East Coast Hockey League's first free agent camp in Niagara, and I went over there and I skated a little bit and tried my hand at trying to get into a league, and eventually ran into two other guys named Dave Kramer, Tim Kramer, who ran a semi-pro team that went overseas and played other pro teams in exhibition, like really lower level pro teams, and called the Ice Pirates. And as a young kid, I went over there, and I was skating in Czech Republic, and two coaches kind of took notice because it's a black guy out there on the ice who could skate pretty well, kind of stood out. And it was a Russian coach, and then there was another coach for Prague, which was Bohemia at the time. It was their national program, but bounced that down, tier 2 national program, their second, third team. And they had interest. And so I stayed over. I came home, told my mom about it. I deferred a year from college. I had gotten into Dartmouth and NYU. Dartmouth didn't know me from a hole in the wall, and the coach over there, didn't know who I was, and I wasn't certain of my ability to go in there as a walk-on. So I deferred from NYU, went overseas, got a chance to play pro hockey for a year and a half, worked a second job unloading potatoes off the back of a truck to earn enough money to kind of, just feel comfortable. And came home and then started my coaching career shortly thereafter, after realizing that I think it was about that time I had run my course as far as my skill being able to carry me through comfortably on that pro circuit. I wasn't going to make it into the East Coast Hockey League in a comfortable role. Just didn't have that skill set that they were looking for. And at the time, my skill set matched more with a European model, I guess you would say. More open ice, less hitting. Came home and, eventually started coaching. And then the coaching career starts from there.
Yeah, and I want to obviously get into that, that transition into being a coach. How, talk about the programs you've coached and some of the opportunities that you've had in that space. And then I want to talk from there about kind of your approach to coaching and your approach to how you don't coach, you mentor players, young players, and you're, why don't you talk about that? And I can just throw in my experience of why I think it's really special, what you do.
All right. Well, when I came back home, you can attest, and I think any hockey player can attest for the most part. I mean, some have a smoother transition from the time that they have to make that decision to stop playing competitively and then sort of go into mainstream life, whatever that is. Mm-hmm. And for me, there was a moment there where it was tough, right? But when I came back, there were a couple of people, and I'm going to throw some names out here. Some of them probably some of the viewers and listeners will know and have different feelings about. However, these just were the people that I ran into when I came back home. One of them was Jim Hunt, who was working with the New Jersey Devils youth organization. He was like their director or what have you. And Jimmy Hunt obviously was with the national program for a good while. He's a name that's part of that program. And he invited me out to be on the ice with his practices. He invited me to skate with his guys because I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm still trying to kind of stay on the ice and keep my skill set just in case an opportunity bounced up that I may want to jump into. But at the same time, I just wanted to be around hockey. That's really what it was, and I didn't quite understand at the moment. I just wanted to be in the environment. So he afforded me that opportunity. Another guy, John DeNorsha, who was later with the Devils as well, afforded me the same opportunity. And then I started looking at what these guys were doing and hearing some of the interactions they were having with players, some of them that I agreed with, some of them maybe I had a different mindset on. And it started to pique my interest and, just kind of being on the other side of it a little bit. And so it helped me gradually make that transition from being a player into wanting to coach and sort of work with and mentor players. I found myself back at my old stomping grounds at, the old Sky Rink, which was still at 450 West 33rd Street, and was transitioning over to ready to go to the Piers now, which is Chelsea Piers. Their first opened, fully operating business was Sky Rink, the ice rink, but that hadn't come about just yet. And so I was, I got on the ice and helped out with clinics, pushed pucks around, talked to players in the corner on the side while the head coaches were doing their thing and supporting people. And I think that's where I first started getting a taste of my feeling of a supportive role. The assistant coach is usually the one that you can talk to and, you can kind of feel like you have a more open relationship with and have different conversation with. And that kind of became me. I coached with the New York City Cyclones at Sky Rink for a good while. Eventually, I got back with Bill Hall and Conforti and some of those other guys, and they had helped me out with different things, and I started kind of poking my head around the national program a little bit for Select 16s, Select 15s, either selection committee or just kind of being out there on the ice helping out. And then I went on to become a head coach. I was coaching in house leagues, obviously, for a good while, and then I had an opportunity to go over to Apple Corps, and I coached with their Junior B program for a while, and then I became the assistant coach with their Junior A program under Henry Lazar. In 2010, we were fortunate enough. We had a really strong team, a great bunch of guys, and we won a national title with them, USA Hockey national title, and that was awesome. And that opened up some more opportunities as far as coaching. I work with a lot of different organizations, youth organizations. I currently work with and had been working with for a while, the Rye Rangers Youth Organization as their coaching director, and then sort of took a step back when I started working in the city. You know, I'm a physical education teacher now. I work at a school with kids that have some learning disabilities and specifically who are on the spectrum of autism. And so I'm a movement specialist / physical education teacher. And so that took a lot of time. And so now I'm just coaching a Bantam and Pee Wee team with Rye and kind of keeping myself in the mix a good bit. And, you know, before then, as you know, and you mentioned, I had a 12-year stretch where I started my own organization, which was Patriots Youth Hockey, and it was under the guise of Patriots Youth Hockey Development. And, we did tournaments, we did spring teams, we did training, we had summer camps, and it all gave me an opportunity to be in front of kids on my own terms and not having to worry about a board and a coaching staff or a director that had its own mindset on playing time and who this and who that and who got picked. You know, I got to make all my decisions and live or die by them. And so I guess that's a quick synopsis of some of the stuff I've been doing with hockey.
Yeah, it's funny that it kind of goes hand in hand with how you operated that organization and kind of how you carry yourself around players. And just talking from my personal experience, I was a late bloomer, and because of Sean, I don't think I ever would have bloomed. And obviously there's other people in my life who've helped me out as well, but Sean was someone who nurtured me when I was a hard, person to nurture. I wasn't the most skilled always, and I was super undersized, was hitting puberty at like I was like 18, 17 years old, like super late bloomer. I was like, what was it? I was 5'5", 120 pounds. Junior year of high school, Sean. I had a huge growth spurt.
So you sprung up.
Exactly. So like, just to give context, and like that's kind of how it was for me in my hockey career in 17, 18. If they, what they say, if you're not talking to Division I schools, you're done. That kind of thing. But I wanted to play Division I. I wanted to play pro hockey, and Sean was someone that helped me. He would water the seeds of me having like self-belief and confidence when there was nobody really out there else that did. In the hockey world, I guess you could say. I was always scratching and clawing. So I want you to talk, Sean, about kind of your approach to hockey, and we can dive into some of the things you mentioned before about you don't have to listen to anybody, hence why you created your own thing. And I think sometimes a lot of other, there's higher ups in hockey organizations that dictate decisions for young kids and very impressionable kids, and you didn't want to be involved in that. So I want you to kind of talk about your approach to hockey and your approach to youth development, and your approach to just mental development overall.
Yeah. Well, this is where the train goes off the rails. I get fired up on it.
I know.
Well, let's see.
It's hard not to, though.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get fired up about it.
Yeah, well, it's hockey and it's a passionate sport, and there's a lot of okay, here we go. There's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of emotion involved, right? And we got to be honest with ourselves. I think, we all bring emotional baggage with us to whatever room or space we decide to occupy. And when you decide that you're going to be an educator, or you're going to be a coach, or you're going to be a mentor, or you're going to be someone that's going to be responsible in some way, big or small, for a young developing person, a human being, you really got to focus on what your rules of engagement are as that mentor. You're going to have to accept the fact that there are going to be mistakes that you're going to make regardless of what your paradigm or your thought process is. And I think that, I would like to say that, and people will say like the burden should be equally shared. Like if you delve into this thing, like you talk about the relationships of players, coaches, parents, the family, and all of that has to work together to give you like an experience that's something that is healthy and helpful. But I'm going to take a step back and say, as coaches, I think we have to really give our head a shake and think about how our role is so influential and can be so positive and so beneficial to a young developing player, and how dangerous it can be, and how it's a huge responsibility, and how much damage we can do to a young developing player that's looking up at us for guidance, and the hockey world has taken so many turns. One of the reasons I stepped back a little bit, and I still coach, and I'm still working with Ryan Rangers, and I'm still doing things within the hockey, universe, but not as much. I don't want to say I don't like the direction that hockey is going. Some of the things that I found that was so, the experiences that I had when I was coaching Patriots hockey, not because it was my thing, but because I was afforded the opportunity to have a relationship with my players on the terms that I felt was healthy for both of us. Coaching and teaching is a reciprocal process. It goes both ways. It's give and take. And we have to be honest with that dynamic. You go in there as a coach, and you want to give knowledge, and you want to give perspective, and you want to give motivation, and you want to try to give whatever you can do to help motivate your players. And you also are you're taking back some of that feedback from your players, that positive, whatever the case may be. And your organizations, you have players running from one organization to the next, changing jerseys like they're changing their underwear, for lots of reasons. Sometimes just because jersey's cool, they want to do so. I don't know, And there used to be a time when, more so than not, playing for your local town team, your club organization, was, a badge of pride. Regardless if the team was super successful or not, you played for your town and you played for your high school. And now you have players just running all over the map, chasing after, I guess, good coaching, chasing after opportunity. We become very opportunistic. And I just think that somewhere along the line, the trust between organizations and families, coaches and players, had been compromised. Do you understand what I mean? Like, at some point, it's like, well, I don't really trust this coach, because am I going to get to play? Or am I going to be a first liner or a second liner, and coaches sell a bill of goods, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the season, kid is benched or not playing, and you'd say, well, that's up to the kid. The kid has to, do their part. The player has to do their part, and that's true. That's true, but the coach has a lot of responsibility in shaping and guiding that experience. And they give a kid 2 seconds to prove themselves, and all of a sudden they're on the dog list, and they're not playing. They had a bad shift. Oh, you're done. They go into the next kid. And I think somewhere along the line, we kind of lost the trust in that dynamic as coaches. And I think parents and families have some culpability in it as well. It gets a little frustrating to see the lack of loyalty to organizations, like players just sticking around. We had our Patriots program for 12 years, and within that 12-year span, there were pretty much 2.5 teams, and those guys stayed together for that whole run, and there's a reason for that, and a lot of times I would say you can coach from fear, you can coach from love, and we can dive into that later, but you decide, and the latter I think is harder, but I think the benefits of it on both sides, coaches and the families and the kids, is well worth it.
Yeah. It's tough because as parents, you want the best for your kid. So I think, you saying the disloyalty, like, I've always noticed that, like, there's always players who, and, so it's a thing for hockey players to jump around organization to organization, correct? And I think that
Now it is.
yeah, and I think that loyalty is so important, but it's so lost. But on the same hand, it's hard to trust a system that changes league names every 2 years.
Absolutely.
So it's like, no wonder these parents are in and out, going to the same organizations within a 10-mile radius of each other, when the league name changes every single season. It's like, who do you trust then? I think there's a lot of distrust in every aspect, top to bottom, in hockey right now, and it's very frustrating. And you're starting to see a very me-centric culture, I think, from the, younger generation up, whereas like the old school game was, it wasn't as flashy, but guys were in it for the team. And now it's like, I'm just wearing this jersey for this season so I can commit, or I can go to, this junior league or this hockey program and play for this coach. It's like, and I mean, I didn't bounce around a lot, but, looking back, I was very, goal oriented, and I wanted to, achieve my goals. But I was also I found a really good job at finding that happy medium with, being a good teammate and caring about winning and stuff like that. But now it's just, who's going to get me to the next level? And that's it. And like, enjoy playing the game too, and that part's frustrating, but, I think I stuck around with you for so long because you were loyal. It was a mutually agreed loyalty friendship that we had of like coach, player, mentor kind of thing. So like, I trusted you because you cared about me genuinely as a person. And from there, I stuck around, played with you forever. And I just think that there needs to be more people like you who are genuine in caring about players and bringing them up and nurturing their ability. And it's just frustrating to not see that as much anymore.
Well, I mean, there's so many nuances within, and I appreciate the kind words. I mean, it obviously goes both ways. I appreciate all the players like you who, you mentioned like, you weren't that, you weren't that big. When you were younger, you're a small little guy out there just doing your thing. And who would have thought you would blow up into a big monster? There's no way I could have known that in a crystal ball, right? There's no way I could know that. But I wasn't coaching from that. For me, I wasn't coaching from that place, and there are coaches out here that'll say, well, I'm coaching to win. We have big stakes here at this, for Shattuck St. Mary, or whatever the name, big stakes, real important things. You're coaching in a vacuum or an isolated area, and say, listen, I've coached junior A, I've coached nationals, I've worked with players that have mindsets, I've worked with, guys that have gone on to play in the NHL, and I've told them the same thing that I've told, guys that, kind of stuck around in house league, and what's that? You got to delve into the love that you have for this sport. And as coaches, we have to remember that too. How are you going to get the best out of your players? If they're not happy, if they're not healthy, if they're not psychologically, in a good place, you can't. If you really want to win, then you're going to have to coach with courage. You're going to have to take some chances. And those chances mean that you might have to throw little Johnny out there and give him a chance to, make a mistake. And build him up out of that mistake so that he has a little more confidence the next time, so he's not terrified to go on the ice and play from fear, and play from a place of just, I'm out here, I'm going to do my best, I'm going to work as hard as I can, and my coach is going to support me. Obviously, there are nuances to this. When we talk about having loyalty to a program, no one coach is going to give you as a player everything you need. Your experience through traveling through this hockey world, you're going to encounter lots of coaches. But, there's a difference between like just really jumping from one team to the next, to the next, to the next, and running after just, where did that disloyalty, that distrust start? Did it start with coaches, taking kids all the way up into Quebec or wherever they take them and, to sit on the bench and not play a game? Or did it start when some star player went to a team and then their parents decided, we're out of here, and they take them off the team, and all of a sudden the team is kind of like, whoa, what just happened? We lost our top guy, because they went after another opportunity because some other coach sold them a bill of goods. I mean, where did it start? And how do we get it back? How do we get ourselves back to a place where we're just coaching with more integrity, with more courage? I mean, I don't know if it was Montreal who, Montreal's in the Stanley Cup Finals. Actually, they're playing tonight, Danny. Yeah. They're playing tonight. And I think it was Montreal, but they were talking about it on one of the commentaries, and it was like, they roll 4 lines. They play 4 lines. They go out there with these guys and they play their 4 lines, and that's their methodology, right? Not everybody's. And this is at the highest level, right? So make no mistake, this whole issue with the money grab and the issue of changing leagues every 5 seconds and the names of leagues so that they can create a new one. There was a time when the East Coast, when the Eastern Junior Hockey League, the EJ, was the top junior A league, which was the one I coached in with Applecore at a time, and then all of a sudden the name changed, right? Someone wanted to have a money grab and create a different organization. Not my thing, but and so that's what happened. So where does this type of methodology start from? It starts from the top. A lot of the stuff that we have that affects our youth hockey trickles all the way down from the pro leagues, because people look up and they say, oh, this is what you got to do in order to be successful and aggressive. And they start fashioning programs after that. They start running around recruiting players based on recruitment practices that they see at the pro level. And we got to do something with that. I think USA Hockey has to step in. I think that pro teams have to kind of think about what they're going to do. I mean, if we have a Stanley Cup team if we have a team in the NHL that's in the finals and they're rolling 4 lines, you can't tell me that you can't roll 4 lines in your silly little Pee Wee B or Pee Wee AAA program somewhere in the middle of New Jersey. Of course you can. It starts at tryouts. You make a decision as a coach that you're going to pick a team 4 lines. And I know it's not as easy as saying this, but so what? It's hard, right? It's hard work to be a coach. You pick the 4 lines and you tell yourself right there and then, these are the guys I'm rolling with, and I'm going to develop all of them. I'm not going to just develop the first 2 lines and have the other guys sitting around just in case someone gets hurt, And if an NHL team can do it, we can do it. And we need that type of an example at the top so that type of methodology trickles down, as opposed to all this other garbage that we have people feeding off of. At least that's my thought on it.
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't think it's ever going to change, to be honest.
Well, money, right? It's hard. It's like...
Exactly. And people buy into it. And I think it's because if you don't have hockey experience, you don't really know what you're doing, and you want what's best for your kids, so you're going to believe. And I think that's always going to be the case, unfortunately, which is why for me, in me finding my space in hockey and getting opportunities to coach fall teams and all that, I want nothing to do with it. I just don't want to be involved. I don't want to have to deal with hearing with, higher ups telling me I got to play X kid or X kid and don't play this kid. And it's like, they're 14 years old, man. Like, this tournament doesn't matter if they win. I promise you, like, flat out. It's not about sitting kids at a, an important developmental age from every aspect so we can win some random tournament that they're going to forget about in 2 years or 3 years. You know what I mean? Like, it's about playing these players, and I don't want to be in a position where I have to listen to, hey, you have to play this kid, you have to sit this kid, or, you know what I mean? I just don't want to deal with it. I want to be in the space that I'm in right now with the skill development and, take on kind of the similar path that you did as far as, being that mentor and that safe place that players can go to for legitimate advice and help.
Right. I mean, listen, I made and make, and we all do our share of mistakes. Every time we get on the ice for a practice, sometimes we say things to players and we say, maybe that wasn't the best advice. But the point is this, you have a season in front of a group of guys, and by the time you get to the end of that season, or maybe by the time you get to the middle, or wherever it is, that gives you well enough time to kind of make up for and go back and correct. You can course correct different things that you might have done. By the time you get to the end of the season, your player should be left with an overall thought that, hey, listen, this is a human being that was in front of me. He's willing to accept that he makes certain mistakes. He's willing to kind of attest to them, or have conversation, or have difficult conversations, or tell me the truth, about my skill set and my ability. He's willing to have, faith in me, and I'm willing to do the same. You can coach from fear, which is, hey, Danny, I'm benching you because you didn't do X, Y, or Z. And now you're like, oh, my ice time's been taken away. I'm nervous now. Now you're in a negative space, Or you can coach from love, and that sounds really hokey, right? It sounds really hokey, but it's like the player needs to know, and that doesn't mean the player doesn't get benched. It doesn't mean the player doesn't, but the player needs to know why they're getting benched, and more importantly, how they can get themselves off the bench. What's the roadmap to getting back on the ice and getting back into a shift and getting back onto a power play or getting back onto a PK? What's the roadmap you're giving your players, or are you just sitting them down and that, and going to the next guy? Are you just using that kid's mistake so you can play the quote unquote top guy that's fighting for time and fighting for space? Are you looking for opportunities to bench kids, or are you looking for opportunities to get them on the ice? And I think sometimes we got to really reflect on what we're doing as coaches on the bench, especially operating at those high levels where you have marquee players that have had negotiations with their parents and their agent or whoever, prior to the season even starting. And now coach feels obligated for some reason because ownership's directed you toward it. All that silly stuff that goes on at the top affects how our youth organizations kind of run the show. at the lower levels, and that's unfortunate, Or you can coach from a place of love where say, listen, it's okay to make mistakes, and that's not something that loser coaches say. That's what winning coaches do, And what's more important, winning some stupid game in the middle of nowhere in Saskatoon or Saskatchewan, or having your kids be able to win at life, and ultimately I picked the latter, right? That's what I think. And guess what? Also, you'll develop your players better, and you'll have stronger teams, and you'll have your share of wins. You might even win a national title one day. If there's some youth hockey coach out there thinking about, well, what should I do with my kids? Develop them. Develop the whole kid. Develop your whole team. If it can work for the Montreal Canadiens, it can work for you too.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more with everything you just said, obviously. And, from a mental perspective and like a mental health perspective, I think it 100% goes hand in hand. And I want you to kind of talk about, first off, like your personal experience with mental health and kind of some of the things that you've gone through. And if you care to kind of just discuss, like, after you tell your story with that, discuss how, hockey and mental health and how that goes hand in hand, and kind of your experience with hockey and mental health. And, I've said it a million times on here about how hockey was directly involved with my mental health positively and negatively. So I'm sure same can be said for you, but I don't want to speak for you. So yeah, if you can just share with us that.
Yeah, well, okay, so we peel back some of the layers, and to be honest with you, if you look at kind of like I guess how I coach and why I coach, it's nothing special about what I do. I love the players that play for me. If I have a player that's going to go out there and throw himself into the corner after a loose puck and get his bell rung by some 6'2" guy, 200 and some odd pounds, because I told him to do that, I think if you're a warm-blooded human being, at some point you're gonna develop some type of liking, for a kid. You're gonna develop some type of love for that person, and when they trust you like that, and they trust you for lots of reasons. You say, oh, they trust you because they want ice time, so they're going to listen to you, or they want to get out there more. But over time, you have that opportunity to develop a stronger relationship based on something stronger than just a kid wanting to do so that they can get to play more. It has to turn into something more than that, and you have to earn that trust. You have to earn that, obviously, and that's a reciprocal thing. It goes both ways. As far as my mental health, with that being said, our team motto on Patriots was one team, one family, right? One team, one family. And what that meant for me is it's, this game of hockey is like one family, and there's one team, and it's one game, hockey. But even deeper than that, this family is all of us, and this one game is life, And when you start delving into my own grapplings with mental health issues, I try not to blame it on anything. I mean, yes, I grew up without a dad. Do I feel that impacted myself as a person? I'm sure that there are things missing or things that could have been in place. I don't want to say missing, like there's a deficit, but maybe there could have been additional tools that I could have had at my disposal if I had a positive male role model in that role. But then again, who's to say it was going to be a positive one? I never met him. I don't know who he is. Maybe he was a jerk, and that negative experience probably would have been a deficit, may have taken away. But there's always been this underlying thing with me creating family for my teams and creating that outlet. And I know I used to joke around all the time, like I'd be so pumped for the tournaments that we'd go on for any team. I'd get so excited, love going to the hotel, love seeing, all the other teams and just the whole thing. It's just, I have a blast, right? I'm like, who's having more fun here, me or the kids? I hope the kids are having a good time. I know I'm having a good time. And then come Sunday or time to go back on Monday or whenever it is, I'm bummed out. I'm like, oh, win or lose, now we're going home. I can't wait until the next practice so I can see everybody again. And why was it such a strong yearning for that group, for that family? And it probably stems back to, some feeling of isolation, on my part growing up, not really being, it was just me and my mom. And she provided a lot of love and she provided enough. But I didn't have siblings running around. I didn't have a dad running around. I didn't have a lot of things running around, and I can say, well, no big deal. I never knew it, so I don't miss it. But there's an impact, you know, when you see other families or you see other interactions, when you go on the road and you're in the back of someone's car and mom or dad is driving their son or daughter or whatever it is to a game, and you're just kind of tagging along with another family, you know, over time, I think that kind of plays a role, right? So this hockey thing has meant a lot for me because it's given me the opportunity to create different families and try to nurture them along, nurture you guys along, and you guys are nurturing me along as well. You know, I'm learning from your experience. I'm learning from the love that's being given back to me, from the respect, from the courage, from the examples that my players show on the ice every single day. I say, I got to hold myself to a higher standard because this player is really doing this, that, or the other thing out there. Or I have to bring more to the table because I see that this kid needs a little support, you know? And so I don't know. I don't know if it answers your question, but there is a level, there is some vulnerability there that I touched on about as far as maybe some of my other, you know, psychological motives as far as being in this game as a coach and as a mentor and as a program person, developing players and putting teams together. What am I getting out of it? I'm getting family out of it, you know, and it's pretty important. And with that, there's a big responsibility that you have to your family, you know, to take care of them and be there for them as best you can. Not just on game day, not just on practices on Wednesdays and, you know, Mondays and Wednesdays when we had practices or whatever. The phone is there. It's, you know, you can pick up the phone anytime. I tell you, Danny, or I tell all the other guys that we've coached or worked with. And you just, I don't know. There's just a big responsibility of coaching. I'm still trying to figure out how to do a good job of it every day. And every day is a learning experience. And I'm trying, you know, and hopefully I'll just keep getting better at it.
One thing, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to make a comment quickly about what you said about your phone being available. And when I tell you guys, like, listening, there's no BS behind that statement. I've called Sean at 3, 4, 5 in the morning when I was playing hockey and having massive anxiety attacks, like puking, like the worst possible situations I could have ever been in. And he picks up every time. And he talks me off the ledge for hours on end. And it's just a great support system. And it's nice that, you know, I don't have a hockey background. My family didn't play hockey growing up. So having Sean as someone that could kind of give me that hockey advice as well, mixed in with the life advice, I can't tell you how much it's meant to me. And that's why I'm so, you know, happy to have this on. But I just wanted to give context that when he says that, hey, you can call me whenever, he means it. And this has happened, Sean, thousands and thousands of times. You know, I'm a bit of a mental midget when it comes to the game. I care too much, I think. But yeah, I just wanted to make that known that that's legitimate. And it's happened for me countless times. And just can't express how appreciative I am of it, because I would not have been where I am today without you, Sean. And yeah, I'm just appreciative.
Well, I try, you know, I know you warned me about the humility part on that, so I'll speak on, you know, your comment there a bit. You know, yeah, Danny, you know, you called me at any old time, you know, but I look over and I see it's you, or if I see it's any of my players, I'm excited. You know, I'm excited to pick up the phone, you know, because hearing from you guys means a lot. You know, sometimes it's not always the best, right? Circumstances, you're going through stuff. And I think sometimes people, you know, as a coach, I don't pride myself. I'm not super X's and O's. I'm not super this, super that. I'm a developmental coach. I work with people on their power skating and their, you know, their technique and their form and their skill set. That was my strongest part of my game, my ability to skate well. I presented well on the ice, right, as a skater. You know, all the other skill sets, you know, it's okay. But my skating was enough to get me into places I had no business being in, you know. Playing in the middle of Czechoslovakia or the Czech Republic. I mean, you know, come on. From the South Bronx, what am I doing over there? But when you talk about the struggle, like when I look at players, and the thing I'm proud of about myself is my ability over, and my track record over time, I guess, to kind of see potential for no apparent reason, for simple little things, not so much so because of the hockey, right? Like, I almost think like the skill sets in hockey take a second place to identifying if someone's willing to fight. Like, how passionate are they about something? Are they passionate about it? It doesn't even have to be hockey, but do they carry themselves with a conviction, a passion, almost kind of like a reckless abandon toward the things that they love and they feel passionately about. You know, do you feel that when you talk to someone? And, you know, and in your struggle, you know, it's easy to say, oh, he's struggling, you know, he's struggling with this mental health issue or this anxiety issue. But the thing that fed me off of what all of you guys do, because, you know, a lot of my players look similar. They go through a lot of things, right? And I guess that's all of them. You pulled back the veil on all these amazing players that you've had on your show. Guys that have gone to the American Hockey League, guys that have, you know, gotten into the NHL, guys that play Division I college hockey, Division III, all these, you know, girls that have been successful in this, whatever the team may be. And they're talking about their struggle with mental health. And it's like, okay, well, mental health issue isn't the anomaly. We all go through it, you know? I think some people just are embarrassed to talk about it. They hide it. But who's willing to fight? Who's willing to struggle, you know? And I see that. If I see that in you, you know, it's like, oh, he's having a tough time. But God damn it, he's really putting up one hell of a fight. He's putting up one hell of a fight. How do you not get passionate about that person? You know, how do you not appreciate that person? You know, do you sit back and let this, you know, say, oh, mental health issues, a stigma, you know, something he's not all there or something. No, who's all there? Who's all there? You know, the people that think that they're all there, that got it all together, something's wrong with you, you know, and you're just not admitting it. And that's okay. That's okay. But when you see someone that's willing to just fight for life, just fighting for their life, fighting to live, to understand how to live their life on their own terms, how to be independent, how to be successful, how, you know, confronting life head on, because life is scary. Well, that's what hockey's about. You know, that's what it's about. You live life in those 3 periods and in those few moments for your shift, and, you know, those 30, 35, 45-second shifts, you're living a whole lifetime. And are you courageous enough to go out there and fight, sometimes literally, and fight for every inch? So when you see someone out there that's just doing that in life, you know, well, that's a hockey player. And that's a person that has potential, and that's a person that has courage, you know? And, you know, that's what I see in you. And that's why I wanted to pick up the phone every time you called, and any other player that, you know, that has played for me. And, yeah, I mean, I have an obligation and an opportunity to be there in some way.
Yeah. Well, I know I'm appreciative, and all the guys that are on those New Rock teams are, you know, appreciative, and, you know, still keep in touch with all those guys to this day. And that's because you created that. So, I'm just, again, really appreciative of you coming on and telling your story. And, I'd love to have you come on again. I think we could talk about some, you know, more topics. I mean, we can have this conversation for hours, but if there is anything else that you do want to say, to anyone out there listening, just some final words, some thoughts, or just some things that you would have wanted someone to tell you, whether it be regarding mental health or words of advice for young hockey players coming up trying to make it. Yeah, what would that be?
Well, for my fellow coaches out there, I mean, you know, think about the process of coaching from fear versus coaching from love, and I say from love, not necessarily with, and what that means. You know, don't just count it right at first glance. You know, are you being punitive? Are you, you know, in your approach, or are you being nurturing in your approach? For all my young players out there, you know, for that have experienced the no's, like, you know, you're not good enough. No, you're not this. No, you're not that. You know, don't let that sidetrack you from dreaming. You know, you can dream big. Dream big. I think we talked about this before, and it's so cliche. You know, you're shooting for the stars, right? You're shooting for the stars. You really try to say, I got this super lofty goal. And you know what happens when you fall short? You end up landing on the moon, right? You land on the moon. Well, geez, that's a pretty lofty goal and a pretty big accomplishment in and of itself. So set your goals high, you know. Have realistic conversations with people that you trust, and hold on to those relationships that are meaningful, you know, so that you can build something off of it and you can have that support. And if you're going through stuff and if you're having a tough time, don't be afraid to reach out to that support system, to someone that you trust. Tell somebody. Tell them that you're not okay. You're not feeling all right. You're hurting. Let somebody know, you know, and just keep playing this game, man. Keep playing it. It's well worth it. It's a blast. And, you know, and it's all about just living your life and really experiencing, living in the moment, you know, appreciating every moment that's given to you, because it's a blessing.
Appreciate that, Sean. That's wise words. So, yeah, I think I'm excited to release this. So it's gonna help out a lot of people, and just again, really appreciate you coming on, being vulnerable, telling your story, and just appreciate for you, being a part of my life and helping me out in so many ways. So yeah, thanks, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Danny. Good to see you.